love her work. So she does art in several mediums, and she's going to talk about the way that veganism influences her art. And I think Ruth's been a vegan for quite a long time at university.
Yeah, I'll talk about that.
Oh,
quite interesting, yeah.
Okay, so I won't say too much more, apart from the fact that there are cards from Ruth for Ruth up the front here, and you can join her mailing list if you want to. There's also, in November, there's all around Christchurch, artists open their studios, and the dates are on here. And I went to Lincoln People's Place last year, and obviously I've known her for a really long time already, but it's really an interesting experience just to see how many works that she has just at home at that time. Anyway, thank you so much, Ruth.
Thanks so much for coming. I was really worried I was going to be talking to myself, so that's brilliant. Thank you. And I thought the best thing to do would be to start by just talking a little bit about my vegan journey and how I think it inspires my art. So my childhood was quite an average type of childhood. I think I was the youngest of 3 little girls, and holiday time was always going to Ireland every year, and we'd always stay on a farm and visit the relatives. And on this farm it was so exciting because we'd go and feed the pigs and we'd feed the calves and stroke the donkeys and go and collect the eggs, and it was a really special time. But then we'd go into the farmhouse and sit down and eat bacon and eggs, you know, like so many people do. And as a child, it didn't link at all. I just didn't question what I was eating. Now, I think my childhood was very strict, and meal times were always, I found, a little bit traumatic. You always sat at a table and you always ate what was put on your plate. If you didn't eat what was put on your plate, you didn't leave the table. It was, you know, and I found that really difficult. Not that I didn't like the taste of meat. I didn't like the texture. It was the texture. And so I would sit there and try and eat it until I ended up a bit like a hamster with it in my cheeks, until I could convince them that I had swallowed it. I really have. And can I get down from the table? And then I was able to get down from the table and then just go and get rid of it. I mean, you know, it's awful when you think back to how it was. My art, sort of running alongside that, was always just to disappear into my little place and draw and write little bits of poetry and illustrate things. And I was very lucky at school, loved art, music, cookery and sport. I think they were my things that got me up in the morning and to school. And then I went to college for 2 years studying art, and it was a great time because you're sort of 16, 17, and I was able to experiment with different art forms. And you know, at that age, you're like a sponge, aren't you? You just absorb everything. And I still, after that 2 years, I didn't feel ready for work. I convinced my mum and dad that I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I just needed to do something else before actually getting into the workforce. So I was able to go to Teesside and study 3-dimensional design and interior design for 3 years. And there were grants then, so I was able to do it. And I feel very lucky that I was able to do that. But it was actually the first year of that study that I lived with a group of people in a house, and it was 1982. And I don't know whether any of you in the UK remember back then, there was a new TV channel called Channel 4, and they were renowned for showing sort of risque, little bit, you know, challenging things, and they would put a red dot in the top of the TV screen. Anyway, they were going to show the Animals film, and I don't know whether any of you have seen this, the Animals film. So we were going to sit down, we had a little portable black and white TV and we sat down to watch this animals film, thinking, I don't know what we were thinking, but we thought it was going to be interesting. Anyway, this programme came on, and you know when you're watching something and you cannot believe what you're watching. I mean, all it was undercover footage of what actually happens to enable us to have those animal products on our plates. That's all. That's all it was, just undercover footage. I just couldn't carry on watching it to the end. I had to leave it. And then the next day, I spoke to the others and I said, my God, what did you think? And they said, oh yeah, obviously it's terrible. We'll demonstrate and try and make their lives better for the animals, and we'll protest. I thought, yeah, we'll make their lives better and then just kill them and eat them. And that wasn't good enough for me. It didn't sit right. Now, I don't think I'd even heard the word vegan then, but I knew I just couldn't carry on consuming, demanding these products that I've seen cause so much pain. It just wasn't a thing. So me being me, I thought, oh, I'm a reasonable cook, I'm going to show everyone, you know, I'm going to do this. And the guy I was seeing at the time, I said to him, what do you think? And he said, oh yeah. You know, you cook everything, I'll eat it. And I said, oh, okay, that's typical, isn't it? So yeah, we ate an awful lot of baked potatoes, beans, and I don't know whether you know Holland and Barrett back in the UK, that was the health food shop. And you go in there, and people would laugh at me and say, oh, you're going in that stinky shop? And you think, actually it smells really nice with all these lovely herbs and spices. And you know, you'd start experimenting with the TVP and the plant-based milks then that were really quite disgusting. But I tried to persevere. And then the real turning point was, and it's sort of awful when I think now, I decided to invite everyone round and I was going to showcase my vegan, and I was going to make a vegan supper, and it was going to be vegan chili con carne. And I made this lovely big bowl of chili con carne. We all ate it, we all had a great time. The next day, I poisoned everybody. I don't know whether you know, if you cook dried kidney beans, and if you don't cook them properly, they release a toxin. I didn't appreciate that. And people were really sick. I was sick, but not as bad as some others. They were out of it for quite a long time. And so it was all, of course, well, there you go, you see, vegan food. That's what vegan food's going to do to you. You're trying to kill us all. And it is funny, isn't it? But then I thought, it set that seed of doubt in my mind, because I had pressure then from other family and friends saying, oh, you're not looking well, oh, you know, just have a bit of dairy, you need some eggs. And I hate to say it, but I succumbed, and I started consuming eggs and dairy again. But I thought, right, how I will make myself feel better is by calling myself an aspiring vegan. That's what I'll be an aspiring vegan. So, when I'm out and about and there's a vegan option, I'll choose the vegan option. Or, if I can, I'll cook as much as I can. I'll cook vegan food. Yeah, but it gets a very grey area then, doesn't it? Because when you go round to someone's house and they've made you something, they've gone to all this trouble, and well, there's only a few eggs in there, and you did have a bit of egg in that last plate, didn't you? And you think, oh, this is all grey, but I'm going to be an aspiring vegan, and that's how I sort of made myself feel better about it. And then I must tell you about, obviously work becomes difficult, doesn't it, when you're a vegan in those situations. And the last job I had before I came to New Zealand, I used to work in London at different design practices and architects and stuff. And in the design studio in one of these companies, every Friday we would take turns to make cakes to finish the week in a nice way. We'd all make cakes to share, and we'd take turns. And of course the others would all make these creamy, eggy cakes, and me being me, I'd go over the top and make all these lovely vegan cakes, which to me seemed much simpler, because you didn't have to worry about the eggs curdling or splitting. You just chucked everything in and mixed it up, and you had a nice cake, and people seemed to love it. But what the others thought was really funny, and if any of you probably can relate to this, people thought it was funny that I wouldn't have their creamy eggy cakes, but they would present me with a pineapple. There you go, you have the pineapple. And and everyone would laugh, because everyone would think it was so funny, because she's funny, isn't she? Here's a pineapple. Or the next day, someone would give, the next week, they'd give you a melon. Or, all these things that you think, oh, and you'd have to laugh, but inside it wasn't funny, because they were just taking the piss, and all having a good laugh from it. Anyway, that was my sort of last job experience, just like, keep your mouth shut. You don't want to be that sensitive, serious person. We emigrated to New Zealand in 2006, and we went to Auckland first. And that was a really special time. Kev, who's here, my other half, he got contract work and left me and my little boy then, Jay, who was about 4 then, and we had to fill our days up, and we decided one day just to go to the local park in Albany, in Auckland. And we were just messing about, and we went into this park, and we couldn't believe it. There were these 1-2-ton blocks of stone that and the artists had carved them all, and they were magnificent. Now the artists had finished and they were gone off and had their farewell party. So me and Jay were picking the bits of stone from around the sculptures, and we took them back to the rental, and we decided to get some little nail files and an old screwdriver and an old knife and stuff, and we started playing with these bits of stone. And there's not many times in your life where you get this really, really special feeling, and I couldn't believe the shapes that were coming out of the stone, just simple. And I thought, all I am doing is removing material. That's all I'm doing. I'm not doing, it doesn't feel anything else other than taking away. And then I'm ending up with these lovely forms. And so this all sits inside you, doesn't it? When you're doing something, I thought, right, when I get the opportunity, I'm going to have to investigate this more. So 6 months later, we moved down to Christchurch, and Kev went and got work and went off. Jay started school. I thought, now's my opportunity. I can really see where I can take this. And it was brilliant because, I started, I don't know whether any of you remember the Vegan Expo at Shirley School, where we used to have, and I had a little stall there and people bought little pieces of work. And then I started exhibitions and a few galleries. And the biggest turning point was when I went to the Arts Centre weekend market just before the quakes. And it was wonderful because people really, really liked what I was doing. And it was exciting because they were giving me their money to have my work, And while I was sitting on the stall, people would come and watch, and I'd usually be just sketching or whatever. And they were looking at my sketches and saying, well, I'd like that, how much is that? And I was thinking, well, I've always liked to paint and draw and stuff, so I must start playing with paint a little bit more. And so that started something really special again, because at college and I used to like watercolour, but it was very strictly done, and whereas now I could just, for my own enjoyment, just play with the paint. So the way I started painting was just to get the watercolour and let it just do whatever it wanted to do until it dried into forms. And it starts out generally imaginary landscapes, and then you let them dry and then see what you're seeing when you look at something, and then the story starts to happen, and then you realise, oh, and I can see this, and then you go off into your own world, you really do. So while all that's going on, I'm still an aspiring vegan, by the way. Yeah, a bit of a joke. And then the Vegan Society organised a talk by Will Tuttle, and he was promoting this book, The World Peace Diet. Now, I dragged Kev along and another friend, didn't I? And we listened to Will, And you know, when you listen and you think, this is a no-brainer. I don't want to be in this grey area anymore. I want to be vegan. I think this was 2011. You know, I need to be honest with myself. I'm not in a happy place where I'm saying one thing then doing another. I'm a hypocrite. And I don't like that feeling. So I came home with Kev that night, and I remember the conversation so clearly. I said to him, you know, what do you think? Because if you're not prepared to go vegan with me, I think we might have a problem. And not really knowing what that meant, because you know, what really does that mean? But I felt so strongly about it. Now, Kev is somebody who he'll just listen, not commit. Because he is somebody who could go to the fridge. He loved cheese. He could go to the fridge and just take a big chunk of cheese. I could never do that. I could do it with chocolate, but I couldn't do it with cheese. He could do it with cheese. And so it was a big deal for him. And a few days went by, and then I discovered he was starting to experiment making plant-based cheeses, and that meant so much to me. And some of them were good, weren't they? And some of them not so good. But it was that time when the commercial cheeses were just coming out, so it sort of satisfied that thing if people, you know, wanted that cheese fix so much to a point. So that was a really special time, but that Will Tuttle was the trigger for me. And I think around that same time, my painting started taking on a definite theme of art with a message more so. So I would do, as I said before, just start with an imaginary landscape. And I think the first one that sort of came out was this Time for Change. Now, the landscape started, and then I do like circles. I'm drawn to circles for some reason, and I felt that earth thing coming out, and then I wanted to try and get across my feelings of how we treat animals so badly, that they're just disposable and exploited terribly. And so then I started seeing that person chucking them away into the bin, and then the time thing in that fine balance of us being life or death, and we decide that, and that sort of thing was what I was trying to get over there. And I remember when I was painting this, I couldn't understand what I was sort of trying to do, and it comes out in a lot of my work, the ribbon bird sort of shapes and the morphing. And I think I'm trying to show the energy of all of us being connected, and we can't really see it. And I think I'm trying to express and show in some way those connections that we have to everything, absolutely everything. The environment, each other, other species, and what affects one affects us all, in my opinion. So that was Time for Change, and then I know then Sorry came out. That was something really quite meaningful to me. That symbolism of that human hand at the top, because we think we're at the top, don't we? We think so much of ourselves, and it's evil. It's got that horrible evil look, and the blood is coming out of it and creating decimation to the water. And basically the symbol of the penguin, adult penguin, saying sorry to its offspring that actually there's nothing I can do about this. It's those, I was going to say a rude word there, doing all this. So that was Sorry. The small one here is Safety Net for All. Now, I think maybe that's self-explanatory, that symbol of the person walking the tightrope, and it's on such a fine line. And I look at veganism, I mean, it's one of the things we can use to help, I think. It's not the answer to everything, I know that, but it's the least we can do, surely it's the least we can do. I mean, I feel so strongly that we have choices. We can either choose that on the shelf there, that milk, or we can choose this awful milk down here that's you know, so much cruelty in it, I can't even go there. But yeah, you know, that's what that's all about, that fine line, and the fish farming at the bottom, and and it's all linked together. I mean, wildlife crimes was one that is very special to me. I think we look at fishing, you know, I think we are criminals. The way we deal with, we don't see what's in the ocean so much, do we? It's all that diversity that is in the seas, that is down below, but because it's below and it's unseen, we feel like we can just exploit it so much. So the symbol of the human, obviously a very strange human form, I think we are very strange, and that balaclava over the head trying to hide, you know, the whoever they are, and you know, poor fish's eyes are in there if you get up close and have a look. But I am quite an optimist, really. That reaching up to the sky, that there is still that little glimmer of hope if we just do something about it. Yeah, so that's wildlife crimes. And then you are what you eat, which is being used a lot in images in magazines, and different vegan magazines and books and stuff. And there's a lot of subtle things going on in this one. Even to the extent, you know, that obviously there's a plant eater sitting with, and we all do that, don't we? We sit with our friends or family who don't view things like we do. And it's hard, it's really hard to be with people that you love and have to just accept it. You know, have you ever had that thing where you're with someone, they say, you don't mind if I eat a steak, do you? And you think, oh yes I do. Don't ask me if you don't want that answer. But yeah, I mean, the subtle things here is, you know, we don't take kids to the slaughterhouse, do we, to show them where their pork chop or whatever's come from. Well, we go and take them and pick strawberries, yeah, that's okay. And, you know, the darker side of that and the lighter side, you know, it's just the imagery. But I don't know whether you've noticed, and that's my little subtle thing, I've got the plant eater looking across straight to the meat eater, wanting to talk about it. And the meat eater's head is down because they're ashamed, and I think they should be. And all this is only my opinion. Yeah, I don't want to offend anyone. But yeah, that was my feeling here. And then within our hands, you know, we have choices, like I said. We can make those choices. It's within our hands to change things if we choose to. Why wouldn't we? Yeah, it's sort of quite simple. Yeah. Now, it's interesting when my carvings, obviously, with the limestone that I use, you can't get those messages like that. And I think in different ways it comes out with connections and light play on the stone. And I love the stone to use. I'm a direct carver. I don't use power tools to create forms. I just go with it and take far too long doing it. But I love it, and I love to see what happens, because you start out never really knowing, unless you're doing something particular like the infinity loop, where you know what you're trying to do, and people like those, and that's fine. But this is my real love, is just to see what happens, and I call that siblings. That actually was a very early work where I just wanted to see how far I could push the stone, and it was basically me and my two sisters. So I'm the one going off and leaving the other two. That was those head shapes that really came out, and I do like head shapes because they can say so much with the connection that you can get them in. Yeah, so I've got prints, limited edition prints of these if anyone's interested, and I've got a lovely studio space that I love visitors to come in St Martin, so not that far. Yeah, so hopefully I've got across a little bit of how I feel about stuff. I'm not hurt anyone's feelings. Yeah, and thank you for listening. Yeah.
Thank you. Did anyone have any questions?
Oh yes, sorry. I do like questions. Yeah, because I'm quite happy. Yeah. Anything.
Where do you see going for the future?
Where do I see?
Yeah.
I would love, because you know, it's great having galleries and going to shows, because you do most of the bigger shows off to Queenstown next month and whatever, but they take such a big chunk financially out of what you do. I would love to grow my business directly, so people come to me directly and don't feel pressured to buy, just come and see and view and discuss. I mean, I love discussing well, probably realise, I love discussing what I do, because I don't always know why. I mean, you know, I've been to exhibitions and places where you listen to people's comments about things, and I would much rather have negative comments than be ignored. Because you know, in exhibition openings and people just wander past like that, don't even look. And you think, oh. And there was one exhibition opening I remember, and I was with a friend, and we were watching a couple looking at my work, and they really didn't like it, and they kept scrutinising it and going, what was she thinking? And my friend said to me, oh, that must hurt hearing that. And I thought, well, we're not ignoring it. Okay, they don't like it, that's fine, you know. Can't please everyone. Anyway, the next minute, it disappeared off the wall, and I went to the woman who was at the desk, and she said, oh, they really wanted it, they didn't know why, but they had to have it. Isn't that funny? That really, and that taught me a lot, because I thought, it's not always maybe good, but obviously I got under their skin in some way. Yeah. So I'd like to have people coming to me regularly, because I'm open every day. I sit there and paint or carve, and people pop in if they want to. Pardon?
Workshops?
Oh, workshop. Yeah, I keep talking about it, don't I? About having a workshop. I never commit myself. And I've got some people who have experience working with me, don't they? Yes. And they still haven't finished, and you need to come back.
Very patient.
So beautiful.
Yeah, because carving is a lovely thing to do. Would you agree?
Yeah,
And I carve outside, and we all carve together, don't we? And
Get
mess
lost
about.
in it.
We get lost in it, yeah. And
But you are amazing how you can see how to do it. We're like, how do we do this?
yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Because you do get people that quite often, they need you to actually place the chisel on to show you, because they just can't see it. You're a bit like that, aren't you?
And draw the lines.
And draw the lines, yeah. Whereas I'm much more, well, don't worry, just hack in and see what bits fall away, and then just go with it. I mean, that's my sort of, because that's a lovely way to work.
Could you tell me the titles of those two sculptures? These are kind of cool.
Oh, this is siblings. Yeah, I call that siblings because the relationship between the three sisters, and that's the infinity loop, so the loop that doesn't end, it just carries on round.
Hey, can you say anything more about the infinity loop?
The infinity loop is a Maori symbol, I think, originally, and it's something that you see an awful lot around. I think a lot of the time when I see others, I get a little bit frustrated at looking at other infinity loops because they're not looking like they actually pass each other, the lines.
Okay.
And I spend far too long making sure that they do, because that's all part of what it is. It's all one piece, but it's twisted round. And so it represents that life cycle, just continual life. Yeah, so it's a lovely thing to do, because if you ever were interested in trying to sculpt something like that, it enables you to see what's coming forward and what's coming back. Because it's actually really hard to do that until you're actually in it, and things play around, and you all of a sudden you think, I can't see for looking now. Is that backward or is that forward? And that's a real, and it's only by doing and practicing you get to know that automatically. It takes a fair bit to do that. Yeah, but it's an interesting thing to work on. Yeah.
Do you have any top tips for anyone else that wants to get into doing that art with a message?
Art with a message particularly, I would start out initially without a plan and just play. Really, I mean, you know, I get a lot of people who talk to me who say they're not creative, and I think you probably are creative. Maybe you just haven't found the way to express it, what medium, whatever, because I think everyone is creative, and I think everyone has created a signature, for instance. Everyone has a signature. Why is your signature like that? Maybe that's a starting point. But if you can just think about the process of just enjoying what you're doing and not worry about the end result, play with paint if that's something you feel comfortable with. Or
I do watercolour.
do you? Yeah.
Yeah.
So watercolour, it's such a forgiving medium. I know some people say it's one of the most hard, I don't know, difficult
It
things
does
to
have a
do.
mind of its own.
Yeah.
But if you can work with that, you get some
That's
wonderful
right.
things.
Yeah, I think so. If you can just relax with it and not try and push it where it doesn't want to go, and then adapt, which I think is a big thing about it. Learning how to adapt to what's happening, and actually you can put that into life as well, because life doesn't always go to plan, does it? And if you can think of it like that, and it helps you in real life thinking things actually might seem like everything's going tits up now, but actually look what's happened now. I thought that was awful, and now it's not. It's turned out really good. You know, that's sort of my way of dealing with stuff. That's the only way I can. And that's how I create, I think. I never think anything is a problem, it's always an opportunity, which is so cliche, isn't it? But that's the only way I can do it. Yeah. But I would just do it and do lots of work. Don't worry about the end result. Just move on to the next. And if you do enough, you get some magic happening in certain pieces that you'll think, where did that come from? I don't even remember doing that. Look at that now. Yeah, just do. I mean, if you saw I've got so much, I suppose you say prolific, I've just got loads of stuff, stuff I wouldn't want anyone to see. But through that, then I get odd things that I think are reasonable, good. Yeah, just do.
So if people that aren't in Christchurch and they want to tell their friends about your work, how can they see it?
On the website, yeah, so I've got a website, so take a card if you're interested. And I'd love you if you wanted to come to my oak studio, which is with Arts Canterbury, put your email address and I'll let you know when it's on. And so that'd be really nice.
And you've also got some glass sheet prints.
Oh, G-clay prints, yes, of You Are What You Eat, if you were interested in having one of those. There's only a limited edition of 50, so when they're gone, they're gone. Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming. Some people this might be the first time that they've ever come to the night market. So it's on the last Saturday of every month. And it's open till 7 tonight. So if you haven't had anything to eat yet, you're still welcome to go out and get something. If you did find that Ruth has piqued your interest in veganism and you don't know too much about it, the Christchurch Vegan Society does have a stall out there. So you're welcome to drop by there. Also, we've got a website, Christchurch Vegan Society, and there's heaps of information on there, recipes, background, all sorts of things. But there's plenty of leaflets on the stall, and the people over there will be happy to come and go and see you. We also have a sausage sizzle out there, if you like a sausage. But there's obviously lots of other offerings on the stalls as well. So thanks for coming, and hopefully we'll see you again next time.